Um, Welcome to On My Couch. So this is an opportunity for Sue and I, my co-host. We like talking with super smart people about things that interest us and are related to the work that we do. So hence On My Couch. So the intent really is just to have a great conversation to learn more and hopefully to see if we can apply it within our workplace as well. So in terms of introductions, my name's Damien. I'm the owner of OMC Group, and what OMC Group focuses on is really helping people work better together. So we do a lot around leadership, culture, strategy, and also exec coaching as well, but all with that principle in mind of how do we help people work better together. My co-host is Sue. So Sue, rather than me talk about you, what tell us your story.
Thanks, Damien. Well, obviously we're related, if anyone hasn't worked that out, but I'm really fortunate to have a portfolio career. And so I get to work with leaders and CEOs and senior executives every day, whether that's in a capacity as a board director or just doing some consulting work. So I'm very fortunate that no 2 days are the same. And obviously this is a great way to start a Friday.
Terrific. Great. And Alison, thank you very much for joining us. So Alison Fleming, I'll just do a couple of bullet points and I might ask you to sort of put some more story around the facts I'm going to read out. But Alison is currently the GM Finance for Mirvac. Your previous roles include GM of Finance or Property Retail, ANZ for AMP Capital, General Manager Retail Design and Delivery for the Centre Group, GM of Finance, and also Regional Manager for the Centre Group, and also a Commercial Manager for One Steel. So that's just part of a little snapshot. So you've also, you're a board member, you've been on advisory panels, you have been chair of the Regional Council for Chartered Accountants for Australia and New Zealand. So Alison, is there a question without notice? Is there anything that you can't do?
Oh, there's plenty.
Right. Maybe tell us what you can do then.
Thanks. And it is a great way to start a Friday, Sue. Lovely to speak with you both. I think that's a really good summary. I think when someone says, who are you or what do you do? It's always, it's a big question, but I think I've been really fortunate to have had sort of a 25-year career in corporate with a background in finance that sort of saw me in commercial roles in mainly mining and manufacturing in the early part, and then I moved into property and spent almost 14 years at Westfield and Centre Group in a number of the roles that you just described there. Yep. And had the opportunity to lead the AMP retail portfolio last year, and towards the end of the year moved to Mirvac. So still in property, but really getting the opportunity to work across different asset classes out of retail. Yep. I've loved all the advisory board and board positions that I've had. They've seen me involved in, some tech startups and some charities that I'm really passionate about. And I think the opportunity to be on regional council for chartered accountants has been a great way to stay connected to the profession I chose very early on, and have kind of, gravitated to and from over my career. So I've had a lot of fun.
Terrific. And Alison, again, thank you so much for joining us. So, Sue and I really enjoy these, conversations. It's called On My Couch because it is a conversation. We're all on our respective sort of virtual couches, if you like. And, we've been fortunate enough to have some really interesting people, come along. And really what we're hoping to learn more about today is that, your career in finance and, retail, building infrastructure. I really want to have an open discussion about your insights and any advice that you've got for people starting out. One of the themes that runs through what we do and what we talk about is leadership. So it's fantastic to have a senior executive with us and really keen to flesh that out a little bit more. And we're going to talk about a little bit more about your career and success. We'll talk a little bit more about interested in your perspective on leadership, your perspective on culture, and then your perspective on women and leadership as well. So that's sort of the flow of the conversation. So, one of the things that, we're big fans of is Simon Sinek, and talks about the the why. If I asked you what's your why, why is it that you do what you do? How would you answer that question? What's your why?
Yeah, it is such a good question, and I do think it's something people should focus on every now and again. And I think it's okay if your why changes over time as well. Sometimes I really love to travel, so sometimes I think my why is funding my next holiday. But then if I dig more into it,
Yeah.
the three things that probably haven't changed for me throughout my career is I really love people.
Yep.
I really love learning, and I really enjoy making money. So, everything I've done has tended to have, those three elements in it. I really love building great teams. I love learning, and I think, I learn from different people every single day. And I enjoy the reward of a commercial success. And, so that they're probably my three whys that fund my holidays.
Great. Sue?
So, Alison, you and I have worked together. We should have declared that up front. So, and I think what's been amazing is that we've become friends since I've left Westfield, obviously back a number of years ago, and that's been really special. Because quite often, sometimes when you work with people, you work with them and they're colleagues, but they don't necessarily become friends. So I'm really proud that after all these years, that we're still going out for dinner and still having a few wines every now and again. But you obviously had a really successful career when we worked together at Westfield or at Centre Group. And so I suppose the question is, what would you say are your top three achievements? And spanning across your career, what would you say the things that you're most proud of?
Yeah, I always struggle with this question, and I think my answer is generally the same. I think one of the things I am most proud of is finishing uni in the first place, because I think that happened for me at a time in my life where I think all the odds were against me, and I got so much strength from that has helped me later in life. I was a high school dropout at that point. I was working 2 casual jobs, and I think going down a path that was leading me somewhere very different than I am today. So when I think about absolutely what am I most proud of, it's probably still that. And then if I think, what that's enabled me to do, it gave me, the opportunity to have the great roles that I've gone on to have. I think, some of my favourite achievements at Centre Group were, the diversity initiatives that I was able to get involved in, and the impact that I've had on the culture that is there today, and the opportunities that I think I've helped create for others. And I know you were a great part of that story as well. So it's probably some of the softer things rather than the more technical elements of some of the jobs that I had while I was there.
So the other question is obviously about life balance, and the big topic at the moment is work-life balance. And I think you've probably got this pretty much nailed in terms of your quadrants of there's work, there's your family and your family relationships, there's what you do in the charity sector and the not-for-profit sector, and then there's your health and fitness and things that you do for yourself. Perhaps, in those 4 quadrants, where would you perhaps talk about the ride that you've just been on and why that's important to you?
Yeah, thank you. Any opportunity to talk about that. So, the ride that you mentioned, I've just come back from Thailand, where I did an 800-kilometre bicycle ride over 8 days.
Wow.
And that's supporting a charity called Hands Across the Water. So Hands was founded by Peter Baines after the tsunami, and it was really just to help. At the time, it was founded to help a small group of kids who had been displaced, because unfortunately they were orphaned as a result of the tsunami. Fast forward sort of 20 years, and Hands now has 7 homes and 350 kids in their care, and it's really about supporting at-risk children. and trying to give them a life of choice rather than just a life of chance. So that really resonates with me for some of the reasons I mentioned earlier about my, sort of my youth days. So that is really important to me. I think, and it's charity, and people always say, oh, it's such a great thing that you're doing, but I would say it's selfish charity. I need to find a phrase for it, because I get so much out of it. I know I'm contributing to a good cause, and I've been to Thailand so many times. I've actually seen the benefits of all of the fundraising that I do. But personally, it's an opportunity to reflect. It's an opportunity to connect with people that I would never naturally come across in life otherwise. Just spending, sort of time off the beaten track in Thailand is a great way to, learn about Buddhism and just some of their philosophies and thinking. And I often say to people, it's just my way of reconnecting, and I try and, keep those benefits when I come home until the next ride that I can go on, where I regain all that perspective again. But sorry, I can ramble about that all day, so I'll stop.
I really liked the way you sort of the choice and chance. That if you said, almost in terms of leadership and what you do to develop people, is that a good leader would probably say they provide the ability to the people that they're working with to have choice. And I think that's certainly what you've done in your career. Would you agree with that as sort of a leadership philosophy?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, different people are going to go down different paths, and those paths are going to be right for them. But it's around, creating a space where they've got that choice, and they're not just going through the motions, or they're not just another wheel, in a large cog machine or something like that. It's helping them think about, what are they choosing, and making sure that they've got the skills, the options, the courage, the self-belief, and all of that to, make choices for themselves.
Which is a nice segue, because one of the things we talked about right at the start, we just wanted to talk about leadership. So maybe we just transition there. I mean, and I would imagine throughout your career you've had the benefit of multiple leadership development programs and study and reading and the like. So and there's multiple definitions of leadership. So how do you think about leadership? Is it as Sue suggested? Is it about that creating an environment where people have the choice? And so what without quoting it, but what would be your definition of leadership?
Yeah, I think leadership for me is guiding myself, because I think good leadership starts with good self-leadership, but guiding myself or others toward action.
Yep.
And I think you really do have to take responsibility in how you're leading your own life and spending your time, and I think recognizing that we are all leaders. Regardless, you always have the opportunity to be influencing or guiding somebody else, because people are always watching.
Yep.
So it's really around, are you a good one or a not so good one? But that's probably how I try and think about it.
Yep. And we've talked a little bit about the sort of the fantastic career that you have. Has there been any aspects of how you think about leadership, how you approach it, that's changed over time? So are there things that you're doing now that are either more important or that you're doing because of the insights and the experience that you've had?
Yeah, definitely. I think I've probably always had quite a strong character.
Yep.
So my ability to I guess lead or you know, corral a group of people or a team has generally been something that I've enjoyed. I think over time I've definitely got more confident in my own style. I think, you know, when you talk about I've been on courses and I've read things over the years,
Yep.
I probably, you know, tried to, you know, implement somebody else's style, if you like. I think I've definitely gotten more confident in you know, the kind of leader that I want to be.
Yep.
And probably the two things I try and work at is more listening, definitely more listening now than I used to do in the past.
Yep.
And really trying to be aware of the judgment that I have, you know, try and stay a bit more, you know, curious and in that learning space rather than implying, you know, sort of applying my judgment to a situation.
Yeah, I mean, and that's really hard, right? Given the expertise that you have, you know, because quite often people are coming to you for answers, right? So the natural inclination is to provide a solution. So that's 2023. So my last question of leadership, because I know we want to sort of talk about culture, but you know, is there anything that you think, you know, maybe it's because of COVID, maybe it's because of, you know, the external environment, maybe it's because of, you know, the current Australian sort of, you know, environment. Is there anything that you're focusing on, or is there a key aspect of leadership that you're focusing on in 2023 that you think is really important right now?
Yeah, I'm trying to have a lot of empathy for people. I think, you know, everyone's coming out of a different scenario from COVID, and we don't there's no rule book for any of this. So you know, hybrid working is new. It's new for people, but it's also new for leaders. And again, you know, coming back to that judgment I was referring to a moment ago, you know, just trying to learn that people can work from anywhere, and you know, they have to work in a way that works best for them. So that's probably what I'm focused on, is trying to, you know, create you know, the high performing teams that I've enjoyed working with in the past, but in whatever way that looks like to them. So that's a focus for me at the moment.
Cool.
That's probably a nice segue into sort of the cultural piece then, because if you're about creating the environment, it's about, you know, what kind of place are you trying to create, or a culture, for the want of a better word. But and given that you've worked for a number of corporates, you've obviously seen a lot of different cultures. What would you say is the most conducive culture to high performing teams or groups of people, and in how do you create that, or what influence does the leader have on creating that right culture?
Yeah, well, I think the leader has to take a lot of responsibility, because they can have a lot of influence, whether that be positive, negative, or intentional or unintentional. For me, it probably starts with trust, and you know, you have to trust each other to deliver an outcome, and to speak up if you need help, or that it is a safe space to do that. I think having clarity is also critically important, because it's really hard to work in a way where people have to, or people are able to work in a way that suits them, if everyone doesn't have, you know, clarity of purpose or clarity around what that end goal is. So, you know, really, you know, doing a lot of work, and it's sort of that, you know, slow down to speed up philosophy, in that if you just take the time to explain to everyone, you know, what the goal is, why that's the goal, what the outcomes are, how we want to get there, the role each person plays in delivering that, then I think you can, you know, you're setting yourself up to have, you know, a more inclusive and successful culture, because everyone's clear, and if you've got that communication and trust, you can all share how you're going to go about doing that. But I think a lot of those elements have to come together nicely for it to be truly successful.
So when we started with, Damien gave us the definition of psychological safety, which is the new sort of buzzword for the I suppose the more theoretical or lectures in this space, and the Amy Edmondson definition is the belief that one will not be punished or humiliated for speaking up with ideas, questions, concerns, mistakes, and the team is safe for interpersonal risk taking. I find it incredible that we've actually got to have a definition about what psychological safety is, because you sort of go, why wouldn't every workplace be like that? Like, I really just struggle with that. So, so how important is that to your team? And then what would are you of the same thing, like shock horror? Do we actually need a definition about what this means, or is that just a sign of the times?
I think it's a little bit of both. I mean, it's you could put a lot of initiatives in that shock horror bucket to go, isn't this just common sense? But then there's that good old saying, common sense isn't that common, and sometimes people probably need that extra layer of protection, if you wanted to look at it that way. But I do think people should have the right to have an environment where they feel psychological safe. I think, I think people would always choose to work in that environment, but I think companies should want that to be a very important element of their culture as well. Because if people aren't feeling safe, they're not going to speak up about what's not working. Problems are going to be swept under the carpet and kept into the cupboard to explode, who knows when. People aren't going to be being their best selves because they'll be putting effort into like covering things up or just not relaxing and being as open as possible. So I do think it's something that everybody wins as a result of trying to achieve.
Yeah. It also then leads on to things like, so yes, it's about people, things speaking up when things go wrong, but it's also about that healthy risk taking in terms of I'm standing in front of a customer and I want to take a risk to try and recover a situation, or innovation as well. There's a whole lot of, studies now that suggest that, if you want to create an innovative workplace, actually the first thing you need to do is actually have a look at the culture of the organization first. It's the starting point is not, is not setting up an innovation unit. The starting point quite often is actually having a look at what are your existing teams doing and how comfortable do they feel about making suggestions as well.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah.
So maybe we're going to move on and continue the theme around leadership, but maybe talk a little bit more. And there's probably a little bit of a nice linkage into psychological safety, and this might be another one, Sue, where you think, hang on, why do we even need to talk about this topic? And we're going to talk about it, as the one that I'm eminently not qualified to talk about. So